Gosh, I hate it when when the loops don't work properly on these things. Welcome to Generation Movie on a live quick review of a new movie opening this week. The movie is Final Destination Bloodlines, and I expect guests, although not the traditional Generation Movie guests. This might be more of a, because Rich isn't super into horror films, so this might be more of a your peanut butters and my chocolates and your peanut butter kind of a Generation Movie podcast where we talk about this movie, Final Destination Bloodlines, but we might be getting guests from other places. So first news of the day is that it had a pretty good night. It had a pretty good night at the box office. Basically, it grossed about $5.5 million opening night, which is higher than any other Final Destination movie ever. And is ahead of Sinners and also ahead of the Conjuring spinoff, The Nun. So it's pretty good opening for a movie 15 years in the making. I got all kinds of stuff going on with my mic and stuff. I'm sorry. But yeah, basically it's 15 years after the last Final Destination. And we are here, and like I said, we might have guests. Maybe.
Motion detected at the front door.
Oh, maybe it's Death.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. My mic is hissing at me. So yeah, we might have more guests. I don't know. But like I said, it's very much a peanut butter chocolate, your chocolates and my peanut butter kind of night. Again, because Rich isn't super into horror films, but almost everybody else.
I'm not either.
You're not either?
No. I haven't really been into them ever. I don't know. Kind of around, I guess, 03, 04. It just,
okay.
They kind of tailed off for me. I was when I was younger, but.
Okay, so let's talk quickly. Let's answer some of the questions we asked in our thing. Is this a movie that's going to make Final Destination fans happy? I think it's a pretty resounding yes. Like, everybody was very happy at the screening I was at last night. It's gory, it's funny, and it does tie into the original franchise, the original set of films that were 15 years ago, or which the last one was 15 years ago. And the gore is significant. The gore is high. I would argue that the opening is pretty amazing. The SKYVIEW, it's like a Space Needle type thing that one of the characters goes into with her husband-to-be, and basically has that traditional Final Destination premonition, and before all hell breaks loose in this newly opened restaurant. And it's an incredible setup, and everything kind of just, when you can get an audience cheering for a character to die really early in a movie because they've done something so horribly wrong that you just don't like them very much. That was the first audible cheer, I think, in the movie for me. Everybody was kind of like, but when that one character gets it, everybody's pretty happy. You'll know immediately. You'll know as soon as you go to the movies and see this movie who we're talking about. But basically, then the movie kind of like, it gets into its own little pacing and, what it's doing, how it looks. And basically, it deals with the bloodline. It deals with the concept that death is working against this person and this entire group of people on this particular restaurant that were all supposed to die, but were saved by this one person. And so she has cut herself off from the family. She is like, and it transitions to her granddaughter, who is having visions of this dream that is basically bouncing her out of college. And so
And
she
her
goes on.
granddaughter is played by
Go ahead.
Jenna Ortega. I mean, you've been singing her praises for, whoa. JW's gone, and I'm here on my own now. I don't know what he just did, but like the quote there says, throw up the ones because it is Bloodline, wrestling related. I had a good time. The granddaughter is played by Jenna Ortega, who JW's been singing her praises forever.
It's
He
not
got so mad that I interrupted him. He just left all of a sudden.
Stop. Her name's not Jenna Ortega.
No, it's not.
Stephanie is played by Caitlin Santa Juana.
Oh, I was mistaken.
Yeah, you're definitely mistaken.
I thought you said that the other night because I was looking at her going, she changed. I could have sworn on Thursday, on Tuesday night you said that.
She's in Hurry Up Tomorrow. She's in the weekend movie.
Okay.
I
thought she looked different.
Yeah,
but I was like,
she definitely looks different because it's a
was...
totally different actress. The actress playing Stephanie Reyes is Caitlin Santa Juana, and she's really good. She's actually very solid. Yeah, no worries. It's your first time doing jumping into the generation movie, the swimming pool. And
I was not prepared to do this tonight whatsoever. I walked in from work.
Good evening, gentlemen. Great flick and soundtrack. I agree. I think Joe's coming too. We'll see. But anyway, so basically the granddaughter's having visions. She goes home and starts asking questions. And basically you find out that the mother, the lady who survived the restaurant massacre, has basically cut off from life and is basically kind of holed up and has become like a doomsday prepper / shut-in / crazy person. And so the granddaughter, of course, in traditional horror movie fashion, says, well, if she's so strange, I have to go meet her. And she does. And basically what we find is that book is one of the more important things in the movie. The grandmother has been protecting the trying to figure out how to cheat death, and has in turn, happy birthday, Jacob. Yeah, thank you, Joe. It is Jacob's birthday. Happy 9th birthday to my nephew. He's fantastic. We have dinner downstairs. We've already had cake and presents. And I think we're watching Minecraft later. So anyway, super cool night for a birthday. But so she goes to meet the grandmother. Grandmother gives her a book. And we find that the grandmother has been holding off death by staying in the cabin. And that basically, and this is where it ties in, it's not too much, I'm not going to give a lot away, but she's been, from that moment, she's been holding back death. And so now her granddaughter has to protect the rest of the family, including her little brother Charlie, various cousins, her mother, her uncle, who are all part of the bloodline of this particular character, who has cheated death and in turn has cheated a lot of people out of death by saving all these people in this massacre. And that's where the movie it takes its inspiration from. Questions are always there. Like, is it gory? Yes, it is super gory. Are the kills well planned out, well laid out? Yes. You don't think they are?
I was calling some of them the entire sequence.
Well, sure.
3 or 4 minutes before it happened. I mean,
but that's the fun. That's the fun of this.
I don't know.
Well, also they give one of the characters the ability to be able to see things before they happen. So she's calling them out as they're walking down, and then when they do happen, it kind of it.
But even when she's not, I called them out too. Like,
but you don't feel they're original. You don't feel that people who like the franchise, who like watching logs fall off a truck, that they're not gonna get a jolt out of this movie. I think it's one of the better reboot-QUELs we've had, where it's not only rebooting a franchise, but it's a true sequel to the original movies. And I think I think it's going to get a lot of love. And the other big reason it's going to get a lot of love this weekend is because of this person. This is Tony Todd. He's one of the great horror actors of all time. This is his last performance. The movie is also dedicated in loving memory to Tony Todd. When he appeared and you hear his magical voice in this movie, we had clapping in the audience, like true horror fans sitting there, like watching somebody they've loved and grown up with and who's no longer with us. May he rest in peace. And also he got a clap at the end when, a movie is dedicated to him. He's tremendous. He has one scene. It's beautiful. It's haunting. And it's also like, he talks about how he's dying of cancer and it seems autobiographical. It seems like the director wrote this for him. And that's an interesting sideline here. The directors of this movie is Zach Lepowski and Adam Stein, who are they're relative unknowns. And they're younger directors, but the key is one of the writers' story is by John Watts, who is known for the Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home. He did the Spider-Man movies. And so he has written this. Everything is based on the original characters. A lot of the movies based on original characters. And it hits. It does very well with what it's trying to do, which is, it's kind of like violence porn. And that's okay. It's a fun, throwback sequel that I think most Final Destination fans are going to come out being pleasantly surprised at how good it was. Because I don't know that when we have REBOOT-QUELs this far away for horror franchises, the people who fell in love with horror franchises in the past don't necessarily like how horror films are being made now, right? You would agree with that, Kyle? And me. I think when you get something like this where everybody kind of goes into it and is not expecting much, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes balls to the wall. So again, I like the Rube Goldberg type of how we're doing things. A couple of them are tricks, but like this sequence inside of a tattoo parlor is pretty spectacular. There's also this whole thing where, they chalk out all of you can see all the different timelines. That's from the book. This is the opening where it's in this giant place called SKYVIEW. That's why I named the episode the SKYVIEW and Tony Todd episode. And I just think there's a lot going on. The actors are pretty good. The acting is solid. It's not spectacular, but it doesn't have to be. It's playing second fiddle to how the characters are going to die is essentially how it goes. And as with everything with the Final franchise franchise, everybody's trying to find a way to cheat death, although they add a rule in this one that if you do cheat death, what's the word they use? Messy. Things can get extraordinarily messy.
Get messy.
Messy is the word they use. And I think they do a good job of explaining things. And I do love the tie to the original franchise. It is a fitting end to Tony Todd's career. I mean, the man was Candyman, for God's sake. But yeah, I think most people are going to come out of it pleasantly. If I Know What You Did Last Summer, the reboot that's coming out in July, does this, I think people will be happy. Horror fans will be happy. And this is one of those franchises it could always be viewed as a never-ending cycle. And this one kind of maybe opens the door where maybe we're going to get more, but it also might not. It also might not. There's no cuts.
The way they finished it, it could start with a new bloodline or a new family or new people. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they could always do another one. I think I'm not gonna lie. If they wanted to end with this one, they could. Like it's done well enough that you can seriously just sit back and tie it to all the other films and kind of like be able to, hello, Jamie Hill, and thank you for saying happy birthday to my nephew. I appreciate that, Jamie Hill. He will appreciate the birthday shout out. We appreciate you. I think it's well done enough that they could do another movie, but I also think it's well done enough that they don't have to. But these movies are made to be sequelized. But again, if it's a definitive end, I also think if it is a definitive end, ending as Tony Todd's last movie would be a really good way for goodwill for these filmmakers and also for the franchise to kind of end with Tony Todd ending. Because that's kind of what it sets up to do. But I enjoyed it. I think the acting's okay. The jokes are funny. The characters get off the screen, which often doesn't happen in horror films sometimes. You're kind of rooting for them to figure out a way out of this. You're also rooting for some of them to die. As is the want of every horror film, like you root for some people and you don't root for others. But I think overall, a decent start to the REBOOT-QUEL horror summer we're about to get. Kyle, what are you thinking? Because you're not as high on it, obviously, as I am. What are you thinking?
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't nothing spectacular, I don't think.
I think
a couple times they tried to make you think it was going someplace, and then it took a turn, which was okay, but I don't know.
Okay. I think it's probably one of the more original Final Destination movies. Also, like they do a good enough job with the script. There's a lot more going on mentally than just, oh, we got to cheat death, right? Because it ties in the bloodline thing. It ties in like, the idea that that's hunting not just a family. It ties in. There's a good segment of the horror being, if you had
2 weeks,
this,
we could revisit this with a lot more input, I think, too. Because it's
What
hard
was
to
that?
say a lot of. In 2 weeks, we could revisit this with a lot more input, too, because it's hard to say
yeah,
a
I
lot.
don't want to give away. Well, the other
don't
thing
want to
is,
give away anything.
I do want to. Yeah, I don't want to give away any of the stuff. Any of the grand Guggenol, Rube Goldberg aesthetic, kills. I would also say one of the things it does have that's interesting is that if you had this information, how would you process it, and how would it affect your everyday interactions with people in your life? How would that trauma then in turn affect generations of a bloodline if that knowledge was something that's there, which is kind of, and again, like I said, the Final Destination movies are not often the thinkers horror films, right? It's not It Follows or Hereditary, or it's not like a super thinking man's horror film, Barbarian or anything like that, or Weapons, which is coming out at the end of the summer. But it does have some more on its plate than other Final Destination movies, which are just teenagers getting wrecked by logs. Yeah, eviscerated, just destroyed. It's got a little bit more on its mind with regards to like Bloodlines and childhood trauma and trauma that impacts generationally, which I have to credit the people with the story and the script who are like, it's a pretty good screenplay by Guy Busick and Laurie Evans Taylor. Guy Busick is one of the screenwriters and one of the people that has worked with Matt Bettolini-Open and Tyler Gillette on Ready or Not, Scream 6, Abigail. So he's kind of got the ability to take stuff that we love and be able to kind of like process it and bring it forward for this generation and us. I like his writing very much. And the direction's pretty good. Zach Zapovsky hasn't really done a lot. Hasn't really done a ton of stuff. Mostly responsible for like Kim Possible. And Adam Stein, is basically one of those guys. He's done a lot of editing and working, but he hasn't made a ton of movies. He did do a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car. So he worked on a documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car, which is funny to me because that's something that played at Endless Mountains Theater. Anyway, crazy. So there is some ties. I do like the thoughtful direction of it. I do like that the set pieces are set up. I think the opening restaurant set piece is probably the best, and it plays out over several scenes, so you get to see it over and over and over again. And it's effective, and it's grisly, and it's fun, and the audience had a good time, and I can't imagine Final Destination fans being disappointed. So, opening night, spoiler-free review. We'll talk about it more on Loud and Nerdy and Generation Movie as we progress. Couple things coming up. We, of course, have Generation Movie coming up on Monday, where we continue our Mission Impossible franchise dive. This week we'll be doing Mission Impossible 3. This guy right here. So it's basically Ethan Hunt versus Philip Seymour Hoffman. With J.J. Abrams in his feature directorial debut. That'll be Monday. And then on Tuesday night, we'll be, Kyle and I will be back together doing Loud and Nerdy with Jerry. Thank you for joining us tonight. Kyle, any last words for Final Destination? I think it's going to be it's going to have a good opening weekend and probably the biggest opening weekend in the history of the franchise. And I do think people are going to come out liking it. Right now,
28 million was the hurdle to beat for the franchise.
I don't remember. I wasn't. It's not high.
It wasn't
Again,
high,
this isn't.
New.
This isn't a grade movie franchise. This is a franchise that people had fun with. You know what I mean? I will tell you an interesting side note here, and it's not only is it marketed and having an amazing opening weekend box office wise, 5.5 million puts it ahead of Sinners, puts it ahead of a couple of the Conjuring franchises, but it's also at 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is an aggregate we use in Generation Movie, and it's at 90% on the audience score. So I think this is one of those rare reboot-quels that is getting embraced by the original generation of movies, the original generation of people who love the franchise. I think there is a little bit of a love for this man as well. Just seeing Tony Todd in his last role is, for a horror fan, is an important thing. But Final Destination, Bloodlines, not bad. Fun reboot-quel. What more could you ask for a summer movie? Just go have a blast, turn your mind off, and then if you want to turn your mind back on, there's enough going on in it that I think is a little bit even heightened for the franchise. So thank you for joining us today. We'll see everybody next week. Monday. Well, yeah, Monday for Mission Impossible 3 and Tuesday for Loud Nerdy. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.